good afternoon wherever you are in the world. I'm Victoryforu and welcome back to my channel. Today is a very, very brilliant day. This marks the very start of the Black Lives Matter mini-series on the Oxfordshire Youth podcast. And this video here is just going to give you a bit of a taster of the kinds of things that we'll be speaking about, my kind of feeling behind why we really wanted to push to make this mini-series. I really hope you enjoy it. It's a bit of a long one, but just enjoy it, listen to it, and yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Make sure not only do you subscribe to this channel because you're already here, so you may as well. Also, go and check out the podcast, which is linked down in the description below. So go check it out, go follow it, go subscribe to it. You can find all of the information down there. Would really, really appreciate your support on this because this is something huge. I'm so grateful to Oxfordshire Youth for allowing this to happen, and yeah, just enjoy. Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well today. Welcome back to the Oxfordshire Youth podcast. Today marks the start of a very cool mini-series. This will be the Black Lives Matter mini-series where we will be talking about all things to do with racism in the UK, how we reacted to when we saw George Floyd's murder, and so many more things that affect young Black people in the UK, because it's something that unfortunately is not spoken about as much as it should be, and we really, really just want to delve into it and find out so much more. Over this mini-series, we will be speaking to some amazing young people, some organisations, and some allies as well, because I feel like it's important to get a rounded view of how we can all work together to really help to make this world a better place. Because if we don't, we're kind of going to be stuck. And unfortunately, that's what's been happening for the last 400 years, specifically with, racism towards Black people. When you think about slavery, when you think about redlining, when you think about mass incarceration, when you think about how Black children are treated so much more differently to white children in schools, it's actually quite scary. The disparity is huge, and I think only now, because we are all still in lockdown, people are starting to really take note of the differences on how we are all treated. I think it's extremely important that we have this conversation, not only for our own personal development and growth, but because we all need a change. This isn't simply just a Black issue. This is not simply just a poor people issue. This is like a world issue. Every single person is involved in this conversation. Please take the time out to educate yourself on how you can support this movement, because this isn't just like a movement for now. This is a movement that will help generations to come. There have been so many talks and progressions and changes over the years that have moved forward everything in the way that we live now, because without them, our society would not be how it is now. But let's be real, we have so much further to go. But let's just talk quickly about kind of the main reason why we are all having this vast conversation about Black Lives Matter, the resurgence of Black Lives Matter, because unfortunately, without the brutal, disgusting murder of George Floyd, we may not be having this conversation. The world may not be looking towards all of these issues as something that is so huge. This has been an issue for many, many years, but because we are all in our homes, we all have the time to watch the news, we all have the time to, take the time out to actually research and look into these issues, now people are really taking heed to it. But unfortunately, George Floyd is not the first and will not be the last Black person to be murdered at the hands of the ones that are sworn to protect us, which is a really sad fact. There have been so many Black people in America, in the UK, all around the world who have been brutally murdered by the policing system, by other people, which is just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. This should not be happening in countries that are meant to be civilized and are always told to everyone else that we are civilized countries. These things don't happen in our countries. We aren't sexist, misogynistic, racist countries. No, we are progressive. But then you look at all of the things that are happening and it's like, are we really these countries? Are we really like that? We look at, the brutal murders of George Floyd, of Ahmaud Arbery, of Breonna Taylor, of which their murderers, some of them have not been brought to justice at all. I think one of Breonna Taylor's murderers has been fired. That's it. That's not even close to being justice. She's no longer living, and they broke into her home and killed her while she was asleep. There is no way that in any circumstance is ever close to being acceptable, and we should not be accepting things like that. We have so much more work to do, and over this mini series we are going to be talking to different amazing young gifted Black people who I guess are kind of used to being kind of the only Black person in the room, but are doing exceptional, amazing things to push forward in their industry. An amazing woman called Elaine Welteroth said this: "You are not alone. When you exist in spaces that weren't built for you, remember sometimes just being you is the revolution." Quite frankly, being Black and British is activism. It is a protest, because merely existing in this day and age is, basically saying to the system that, I don't care what you think. I'm not going to fit into your system. I'm going to be exactly who I was created to be. And those kinds of conversations are the ones that we're going to be having. The ones where, there needs to be more representation in businesses, not only from the standpoint of, employees, but from the standpoint of the boards. Because when you have a diverse board, whether that is in regard to gender, in regard to race, in regard to sexuality, the whole spectrum, then that is when you will start to see, advertisement, you'll start to see work that's put out that actually represents us collectively, instead of continuously representing the singular archetype of the white middle class male that we always see in the media. And we need to continue to use our voices. Our voices are so important. Personally, I don't feel like I can claim the title activist. Many people have said to me like, "Oh yeah, Darius, you're an activist." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like, I'm not doing anything great. Like, I'm not doing anything like Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks. I'm not doing these things. I'm not like the amazing women who pushed and created the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm not them. I'm just not. But we all have a part to play in this move towards activism. I'm not Jamila Jamil. I'm not Monroe Bergdorf. I'm none of these people. But we all have our part to play in moving these conversations forward, fighting for change, and working to make a world that eventually our future children will be happier to live in, will feel safer to live in. Because at the moment, it ain't that. Unfortunately, though, we have seen lots of performative activism, virtue signaling, and very small, tiny steps towards justice, which have kind of just been made to appease Black people or to make them be silent, to make people kind of have the opinion or the opportunity to say, "Oh, we've done our bit now, so be quiet, shut up." That's not okay. Just painting a nice little Black Lives Matter on the road, but not addressing the fact that you need to arrest the murderers that killed multiple Black people is an issue. Changing the fact that, we now can no longer say master bedroom, but people can still, go out into the street and still, murder a Black person if they want to. And the likelihood is they would get less years in prison than they would if a Black person murdered or attacked a white person. It doesn't make sense at all. If we are meant to have a justice system that is meant to seek justice, we need to keep those people in the justice system. You need to make them held accountable. We need to keep them accountable, because if they're not, then that's when we get a very corrupt justice system, which we have had for an extremely long time. Fun fact, I mean, it's not really that fun, but did you know that the policing system was initially created to recapture slaves? Just let that process for a second. The policing system was created to recapture slaves. So when you see, policemen and women chasing down young black men and women down the street in the same way that they would have done way back 400 plus years ago, as if they were recapturing slaves to take them back to where they belong, you really see that there hasn't been much change. Yes, there's been change in the way in which they're doing it or the guise in which they are doing it, but the way in which we are treated hasn't really changed that much. It's just the method. And those things have to be addressed. The voice of young people has been loud. It has been so, so, so loud. And it needs to continue to be so because we are the future. There is no questioning it. We are the future. And when young people are educated properly, we will actually move forward into a world that is built for us. There are many, many systems that exist in the world, that exist within the UK, that are not built for Black people, that are not built for people of colour, that are not built for people that are different than anyone else who is white, male, or middle class. That is because those systems were created by those people. For example, the media. When you look at the media or you watch the news, check out the difference between how they'll speak about a Black person who's been murdered and a white person who's been murdered, or a Black person who's committed a crime and a white person who's committed a crime, because they will always, always, always find the negative things to say about the Black person, and they will always find the positive things to say about the white person, always. There's never a doubt about it. There was a guy in America who did some disgusting things. I'm not even going to say his name, but he did some absolutely disgusting things. And he got praised for being, an amazing student and everything. And unfortunately, he did this crime. But if a Black person did the exact same thing, their character would be absolutely assassinated. That's not okay. Why are we treating people differently based on just their race, even if they did the exact same thing? I am a Black British boy. I've been to school, and the education system in the UK was never built for me. It was never built to support me. My parents could say the exact same thing because they went through it too. But in fact, it was even worse than what I went through. Growing up in a place where, teachers would laugh at you and call you a monkey and be like, oh no, it's fine. That's just what I thought you looked like. No. That's not okay. And people grow up with that mindset, that mentality. And when people do that, that goes into their children and their grandchildren. And that's when we, get really messed up kids who, think it's okay to say certain words on TikTok videos or in YouTube videos, and then they get famous for it and start making loads of money. That's not okay at all. It needed to be nipped in the bud as soon as it started, because as soon as you get to an adult, you should know there are certain things you shouldn't be saying. There are certain things that you shouldn't, be telling your kids to say either. Stop saying it. If you think that the N-word is fun to say, stop saying it. If, you hear it in a song, like you hear a Jay-Z song and you hear the word and you're like, hey, that's my tune, stop saying it. Just stop saying it, full stop. Because when you're saying it and your children are hearing it or young people around you are hearing it, they start to think, oh, it's acceptable for me to say it too. It's not. And that is why we have so many issues of people now having to do these extremely fake and performative YouTube videos, TikTok videos, apologizing for the times that they put blackface on, or the times that they said the N-word in videos, or the time that they, offended Asian people or offended the whole of India. How has this ever been okay? And it goes onto platforms like YouTube and TikTok and on social media platforms. And the people who own these companies are completely okay with it. Yet they'll be super, super quick to take down a song that you've put up. You know, you just dance into a song that you really, really like, and they'll take it down like that. They'll take it down instantly because it's like, oh no, you can't use good music. Yet you can murder someone live on Facebook. Yet you can be racist to someone on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and it's never checked. Yet we have Trump in power, and yes, I'm sorry, people, I brought him up. I know, like, I didn't want to bring him up, but I have to. We have someone like Trump in power who has, you know, racist views, Islamophobic views, sexist views, like many disgusting views, and he's just allowed to spout them on Twitter constantly and consistently. Why has that never been checked at all? Because these things have to be checked. They have to be checked in order for people to grow, get better, and actually, you know, become decent people. And when that doesn't happen, we get the Trumps. We get all of these people in power who are corrupting and messing up our world. And, you know, whilst we're out protesting, whilst we're out, you know, pushing forward and, you know, shouting for change, shouting that Black Lives Matter, they're sat in, you know, their pretty houses, just sat there saying like, oh, I don't like how you said that. I don't like how, you know, you went about telling me that Black lives should matter. I don't completely believe you. It's not about how people say something. Focus on why they are saying it, not how, but why. Why do Black people, why do allies have to stand by us to shout so loudly that Black Lives Matter before you can understand? Please tell me why. Because it shouldn't be happening. I don't want to go another 100 years. I don't want to go another year, to be completely honest, with having to shout the exact same thing, having to go to protests, and the next day seeing that another Black person has been killed. It's messed up. It's wrong. The alarming rate at which Black trans people are being killed is ridiculous, yet they don't get any news coverage, and it makes no sense. The alarming rate that, you know, Black women are being abused online, abused in real life, and, you know, people just brush under the carpet. It is messed up, and we all need to be held accountable for allowing it to happen, to being complicit, to staying silent. We need to speak upon these topics. We need to, you know, be vocal. And me personally, I'm sorry that I haven't always been vocal on these topics, because I should have been. We all should have been. This is not like a singular issue. This isn't just, you know, as I said earlier, this is not just a Black person issue. This is not just a white person issue. This is not an issue for, you know, the working class. This is an issue for us all, because when we all get to a place when we are all equal, every one of us, every single one, our lives will be so much better. Our, you know, quality of lives will be so much better. And there are so many layers to racism. Some of the ones that have been in the media recently have been, you know, systemic racism. But on top of that, there's environmental racism, there's microaggressions. There are so many other things that sometimes don't actually ever get spoken about. When you think about things like Flint, Michigan, a predominantly, you know, poor Black area, a place that, to my knowledge, still doesn't have clean water, yet, you know, their government is great at, you know, pulling out the WHO for no reason. Like, make that make sense, please, someone. But they won't, you know, provide fresh water to these people, and they're still having to, you know, use, you know, bottled water to this day. That's not right at all. The disproportionate amount of Black mothers that die during childbirth is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Did you know that the reason, hi ladies, I'm speaking to you, the reason that modern day gynecology exists is because of a man called James Marion Sims. This man viciously and violently, you know, experimented on Black women. So, you know, all of those things that, you know, to help. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy that, you know, people can get seen to and they can get help and everything. But how and why it happened and how we're at a point where the building blocks of where it's come from is scary. And you'd find that, unfortunately, with a lot of things. So a lot of things that we have in today's society that I guess we kind of take for granted have been built on the backs of slaves. Basically, most, if not all of the UK have been built on the backs of immigrants, yet our government loves to tell immigrants to leave the country. Does anyone want to explain that one to me? This mini-series is going to be, it's going to be honest, it's going to be raw. We are going to share experiences, we're going to just speak truthfully, because that's what we need to do. In order for people to listen and to understand, we need to speak truthfully. Make sure you head to the links in the description to go and check out the podcast. It launches today on the 21st of August 2020. I'm just so glad it's finally here. So much hard work has gone into this. But yes, I'm Victoryforu. Hope that you'll be victorious every day. God bless. Bye-bye. Remember that Black Lives Matter, and go and check out the podcast right now.